can't believe this guy. I throw everything I've got at him, and it doesn't even... What are those?
I don't know. I thought they looked kind of dashing.
I've got 24 hours to get rid of this bozo. Well, the entire scheme I've been setting up for 18 years goes up in smoke, and you are wearing his merchandise!
Thirsty?
Hello, viewers! As we make our big return to Can They Survive Season 5, we'll be starting off with a big one. I went a little overboard with the script on this one. Can the Vulpimancers, the original alien species behind the enigmatic wild mutt, survive in the new world of Monster Hunter? In this game of Alien vs. Predator, who is the hunter and who is the prey? Let's find out together. But first, I need to put on a little weight.
Look, Gwen, you have to treat a car like you treat a woman.
Go on.
No, I sense I've made a mistake of some kind.
Native to the planet Vulpin, a far-off, cold, and dark planet on the edge of its solar system, Vulpimancers were the dominant life form for millions of years. Because very little light reaches this planet, most native life lack eyes entirely, and Vulpimancers are no exception. Instead of vision, they rely on extremely attuned senses of smell, hearing, and a secret third thing. They can track scents for miles, and hear a twig snap from almost a mile away. But most importantly, the gills underneath their neck are heat receptors. Vulpimancers can see heat. This is almost exactly a method some snakes, namely pythons and pit vipers, use to detect prey in low light conditions. Observe!
Ow, wow, put a flea collar on this mutt. And no eyes? What good is this one? It can't see.
Rattlesnakes, seen here, have been put through experiments where a heated water balloon is moved around them in a darkened room with no light. The snakes are able to track and strike the balloon, despite little to no light being present, telling us they can sense the heat coming off of it. Vulpimancers have this same sensory system amped up. They have a near omnidirectional awareness of moving objects around them. Coupled with quick reaction times and amazing agility, this can be a very difficult alien to catch. On their home planet of Vulpin, plant-fungi analogs make up thick forests. These orange biota are the reason for the default, seemingly outrageous fur color. Back home, it's great camouflage for the few creatures with eyes. Vulpins navigate this dense terrain in one of two methods. First, in what's used by mostly juveniles, namely moving through the trees. We see Ben's Vulpimancer form.
Wild mutt! Well, he can't talk. Somebody had to do it.
Being very agile in the treetops, even swinging arm-over-arm style in a process called brachiating. Us humans and other primates use this method to traverse amongst the trees. Adults are too heavy to properly use this method of locomotion. This can be seen here, as Wildmutt faces off against two adult Vulpins from the Null Void. Wildmutt can swing from the chains above, but the adults are too heavy to follow. On the contrary, the rear legs of Vulpimancers tell us of their other form of locomotion. See how this part, that's analogous to Earth metacarpals, the lower digibones, are so long? This is a near universal adaptation for running. If you look at modern Earth animals that also have legs like this, say cheetahs and greyhounds, you'll find animals that are either very adept at high speed or high endurance running. And the show reflects this, Wildmutt's been clocked at an impressive 80 miles an hour, or 128 kilometers per hour. While adult Vulpimancers aren't likely that fast, given their greater bulk, even half that speed is notable. Also, you may have noticed I said analogous. Since Vulpimancers are aliens, even though they're fictional, they have an entirely unique point of evolutionary origin compared to Earth life. This means that any feature they had isn't exactly identical to ours. While they have teeth, those are analogous to Earth teeth, not homologous, which means they are developed from the exact same kind of structure ancestrally. Analogous means they're comparable, but they don't share an evolutionary point of origin. Think of it this way. Human hands and bat wings are homologous, whereas insect wings and bird wings are analogous. By the way, shout out to the Skeleton Crew for the information on long-toed metacarpal animals being fast runners. They have been a great resource for me in all things zoological and paleontological. Another thing we know about them is they have a very wide temperature tolerance. The planet Vulpin has an average temperature below freezing. This is never stated to be Celsius or Fahrenheit, but we know it's not Kelvin, so either way, it's cold as shit. Despite that, Ben never showed discomfort as Wildmutt on Earth, even in relatively hot places like Arizona. This implies that Vulpimancers have an extremely wide temperature tolerance, the widest we've seen of any species on this channel. Potentially. Supplementary material tells us Vulpimancers lived in caves, which are usually great at regulating temperature. Now, their anatomy, specifically how active they are, suggests they aren't true troglodytes, or full-time cave dwellers. True troglodytes expend very little energy, remaining still and using vibrations to detect potential food. It's more likely Vulpimancers used caves the same way human ancestors did, as shelters from harsh weather and safety from potential predators. Thanks to the Fountain of Youth episode of the classic Ben 10 series, we actually have a good idea of the Vulpimancers' growth and reproductive rates. We know their stages of growth at 3 different ages: 4-year-old, 10 to 15 years old, and 30 to 40 plus. This is actually enough to tell us that Vulpins are slow growers, like humans and elephants. They take a long time to reach sexual maturity and skeletal maturity. This is an example of K-selected reproduction, having few offspring but devoting lots of time to them. The opposite of K-selection is R-selection, which uses very little parental care and huge numbers of offspring. It's actually really rare in paleontology for us to have a well-understanding ontogeny, or study of the growth rates of an organism, so it's actually really nice and surprising we have one here. Speaking of adult Vulpimancers, fully grown individuals actually have quills on their back, akin to those of Earth porcupines. We never see them used in the show, but we do see Wildmutt has underdeveloped quills on its back, so it's at least somewhat supported. These quills are likely a defense mechanism against the one predator they had that we know of, the Vulpin serpent. This two-headed, 8-eyed snake-like alien is the length of a sperm whale. With a fully functional head at each end, avoiding this ambush predator is twice as hard. Even worse, these ectothermic burrowers could likely hide just underground, maybe even with a body temperature too low for the Vulpimancers to detect. We don't know exact details on Vulpimancer diets, though the shape of their teeth analogs and jaws suggests leaning towards carnivory. And those jaws are strong. Even juveniles can easily rip apart cars, or more advanced alien metals with little effort. We don't know much of their native prey, though we do know a few creatures, like Vulmoths, Vulpigs, and juvenile Vulpitines, which may have been on the menu. Because of these powerful jaws and teeth, we can assume that they likely utilized all parts of the carcass, breaking bones and other tough materials. Maybe they're a bit like Earth's hyenas in this way. Actually, that's pretty spot on. Like Earth's hyenas, which are way smarter than people give them credit for, they have social structures akin to primates. Vulpimancers themselves have human-level intelligence or greater. The only major difference between them and humans intellectually is that Vulpimancers never had any strong pressure to develop more complex tools or structured civilizations. They had no reason to industrialize or agriculturize because their current lifestyle fit their needs and they were not under any evolutionary pressure to do so. This does not make a civilization inferior to another. There are different ways cultures can progress in different directions, and this is merely one of the ways. Unfortunately, this would be the Vulpimancers' downfall. Not the lack of industrialization itself, they can function just fine without it. Maybe even better, given how, late-stage capitalism's doing. No, this lack of a clear technological advancement caused them to be overlooked. See, their home planet, Vulpin, just happened to be on the route of a particularly busy intergalactic trade route. As such, many species used it as an illegal dumping ground for hazardous waste, both in the chemical and nuclear variety. Yes, this was secretly a Captain Planet episode this whole time. You can imagine this had an immediate negative effect for life on Vulpin. The Vulpimancers themselves realized quickly this was destroying their ecosystem, and pleaded for the commuters to stop. But their language is almost impossible for other species to understand and highly complex. They were viewed as just strange alien animals. This was made far worse by the lack of eyes, an obstacle that for some species make it hard to empathize with.
I don't know! I mean, seriously, what's with you people? I'm blind!
Continued, the Vulpimancers fought back, and were shot en masse. Some came together and built a universal translator that could actually process their language to those of the aliens eradicating them. It took time, but they eventually built a device so sophisticated it could not only translate their own language, but any alien language, almost immediately. But it was too late. The base of Vulpin's ecosystem had been killed off by chemical runoff, destroying the native fungi trees and scorching the planet's microbiomes. Radiation caused rampant mutation of remaining life, including the Vulpimancers themselves. Cancerous alterations resulted in the loss of their lips, exposing teeth and gums to the elements. What we see today are mutated Vulpimancers. Many have suffered a loss in intelligence, or perhaps just of patience after having their entire world and way of life destroyed by aliens. They have little time or patience for talking, and spend their lives fighting over every scrap of remaining food left. The planet Vulpin is now a toxic waste plant, and a penal colony, and the only organisms remaining are highly mutated, unhealthy husks of a half a dozen of this world's hardiest species. A small population of mutated Vulpimancers did escape off-world via transportation to the Null Void, a pocket dimension used as an infinite prison or a place where refugees can start a new life. Here, Vulpins do act mostly the same as their homeworld mutated counterparts, though there's more food available and they are nowhere near as desperate. In fact, one Vulpimancer in this situation was even seen aiding the plumber Max Tennyson in overthrowing a tyrannical dictator, showing that perhaps the species' intelligence has a future here. In today's episode, we'll be using the ancestral Vulpimancer form, from before the planet was heavily polluted. We simply have more information on this variant, and they won't have issues with negative mutations down the line. But that doesn't mean Vulpimancers lack any major weaknesses. They rely heavily on their thermal imagery and sense of smell. When sick, their nostrils and gills get clogged with mucus, rendering them almost helpless. There's also a very specific sound frequency that can send a Vulpimancer into a pain-induced seizure if exposed to it. Though it should be noted, this is very specific, so much so most intergalactic travelers aren't even familiar with. It's not as big of a weakness as the future Predators had. With that out of the way, let's look at the world we'll be sending them to. Behold the New World, the focus of Monster Hunter Colonizer Simulator. Monster Hunter's Cabela's Anime Titties Edition. Fine, I'll do it right. Monster Hunter World. This far-off and isolated continent has been known by the humans of this planet for quite some time, but was uncharted and unexplored due to the vast distances and intense storms around its coast. The continent was largely made famous for a migration known as the Elder's Crossing, during which incredibly powerful species capable of shaping entire ecosystems single-handedly converge here every 10 years. The Commission, a group of elite scholars from the Guild,
Dinkelberg,
has sent 5 fleets over the last 50 years to document and study this new world. Oh, don't you worry, we'll get to those asshats later.
Wow. Here we are on the Mayflower. Just a couple months until we get to our destination. Hey, how about a song to pass the time? Well, we're heading to the New World. We're going across the sea. We're gonna meet the natives there. I bet they're gonna be really cool. We're all gonna be best friends. There's no way that this country will be disappointing ever. We're never gonna hurt anyone. We're never gonna take advantage of any people. I bet we're gonna all be best friends forever.
There are 6 major biomes in the New World. Elder's Recess, the Ancient Forest, the Hoarfrost Reach, the Coral Highlands, the Wildspire Wastes, and the Rotten Vale. We'll go through them in order of least to best fitting for the Vulpimancers to pick which one we're sending them to. The Elder's Recess is a hard pass. Not only is it filled with active volcanoes and excessive magma and energy-bounding crystals, but it's populated by only the largest, strongest, most aggressive species in the New World, some of which are capable of destroying entire continents when hard-pressed. There's very little traditional sources of food here, most monsters consuming pure energy from the crystalline structures or eating other monsters. The Vulpimancers aren't stupid. They won't live here because it's simply not safe to do so. Next is the Rotten Vale, which is basically modern-day Vulpin. Its entire ecosystem is based around decomposition. The air itself is toxic and poisons most life that tries to call it home. Lakes of acidic water and flesh-eating bacteria are common threats in this part of the New World. Deep underneath the Coral Highlands, this dark, miasma-filled pit is the backbone of New World ecology. A native bacteria called effluvium breaks down organic matter at such a rapid pace that it aerosolizes nutrients from the many bodies that eventually fall in. This is deadly to humans, and this gaseous bacterium can make the rotten hail uninhabitable, though it's a key component in why the New World is so biodiverse. Given its similarities to their ruined homeworld, it should come as no surprise the Vulpins won't be moving in.
It's so dark down here. I can't see a thing.
Oh no, what a nightmare!
Sorry.
With low rainfall and intense sunlight, the Wildspire Wastes form a mix of desert and scrubland on the southeastern part of the New World. Like Earth's deserts, it's far more biodiverse than meets the eye. This habitat gains its name from giant clay-packed nests made by ants, dubbed wildspires. These huge structures can reach hundreds of meters in the air. Ants make megastructures like this only due to the high amounts of bioenergy they can access deep underground. Defined by a lack of stable water, intense heat, and quicksand, the Wildspire Wastes have plenty of hazards to deal with. But the heat itself is what might keep the Vulpins from settling here. Such blazing temperatures could threaten to dull the Vulpin's senses, their most important trait for survival. Not a good combination. Getting the most of bioenergy from the Rotten Vale, the Coral Highlands are a vibrant and colorful habitat in the center of the New World. Huge terrestrial corals made up of giant reef systems isolated by a ring of stone spires separating it from the north and the south. Like marine corals, these build on each other, creating huge mountains of symbiosis that form the basis of habitats just as biodiverse as their oceanic counterparts. In the coral depths, tree-like corals form analogous shapes to trees. They're often huddled together, forming pseudo-forests of vibrant pink and purples. At the highest peaks, plate corals form large plateaus that make up their own unique habitat. Both species reproduce via airborne eggs, which often refract light and make a diamond dust effect on the air of the highlands. These aeroplankton offer a new food web base, and as such, the Upper Highland attracts a large variety of giant fauna. While appealing due to sheer biodiversity, the Coral Highlands are poor real estate for the Vulpimancers. While juveniles would find climbing the coral spires easy, adults would struggle to follow, making them easier targets for the many flying wyverns that make the highlands home. Add in that aerial predators are harder for their thermal imagery to track, and that this locale is very close to the Rotten Vale, I don't see the bulk of Vulpimancers wanting to live here. The chilly hoarfrost reach lies beyond the hinterland sea. While this seems inhospitable, for the Vulpimancers, this might be prime real estate. The temperatures are close to their original home, and the icy forest in the south would be very familiar to the fungal forests of Vulpin. Even better, the reach has extensive cave systems, another similarity to their home planet. The snow is new though. For whatever reason, Vulpin didn't have much solid water. This may be a hazard for Vulpimancers on the run, causing slipping and sliding. Not ideal for aliens that use climbing or running at high speeds to avoid danger. And with all that being said, the hinterland sea separates the mainland from the hoarfrost. We have no strong evidence of seafaring among the Vulpins, and given their lack of sight, making this voyage may be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Their thermal imagery doesn't extend far enough to see the new landmass, and not being able to navigate by stars or other landmarks makes such a journey very unlikely. So it's not as ideal as it sounds at first. We could drop them directly in the hoarfrost, but they'd be completely isolated from other populations. If a population could establish themselves, they'd quickly make themselves at home once they learned to handle the snow and ice. Last and certainly not least, we have the ancient forest. Formed millennia ago, this hot, humid, tropical rainforest is made up of trees so large they make Pandora's forest look like a Walmart garden section. A variety of biomes exist in such a biological wonder. The understory is almost as dark as night, and has many shallow caves and tunnels running throughout. Open plains and tropical beaches mark the outskirt of its territory, where herds of larger herbivores gather in numbers. And the highest treetops of the canopy are an elaborate maze of branches and vines, large enough for a human to run on without risk of falling off. This is the peak of biodiversity in the New World, and it has the fewest number of major environmental hazards as well. The vinding forest floor can be a tripping hazard for those unprepared, and can shift under the weight of larger monsters. Flooding is also a major hazard here, as the many waterways sometimes have precarious dams in place. It's unclear if these are formed naturally, or if some animal life has set them up, but they aren't the strongest form of protection. Should these dams be broken, moderate flash flooding can occur. This forest is the closest to the Vulpins' homeworld, and offers them the best chance of establishing themselves. So for the rest of the video, we'll be focusing on the ancient forest above all else. Of course, as Soundfont, the Vulpimancers could survive in other biomes. In order to keep this video under 2 hours, let's narrow the scope down to where they'll be most comfortable. But a region this biodiverse isn't uninhabited.
Chow time!
Okay, I give up. What is that?
Marinated mealworms. Hard to find them fresh in the States. You know, they're considered a delicacy in some countries.
And totally gross in others?
If these don't sound good, I've got some smoked sheep's tongue in the fridge.
Ugh, couldn't we just have a burger or something?
Nonsense. This summer's gonna be an adventure for your taste buds. I'll grab the tongue.
Okay, I got a half-eaten bag of corn chips and a candy bar in my backpack. What do you got?
Some rice cakes and hard candy.
Think we can make them last the whole summer?
Vulpimancers are predominantly carnivorous. We know this from their teeth structure, or analogous teeth. Their analogous incisors and analogous canines show adaptations for carnivory. How many times am I going to say analogous today? Take a shot every time. They may be omnivorous, but we never get a good look at the teeth farther back. The native life on Vulpin is also poorly known, but as said earlier, the Vulmoths, Vulpigs, and juvenile Vulpitines may be valid prey items. The ancient forest does offer some notable edible plant life. Antidote herbs, vital lilies, and nullberries are used in potions by the humans who visit the New World. It's likely they would be sought out by the Vulpimancers, whose sense of smell will key them in on their uses. And when you consider the wide array of toxins and elemental blights these plants can cure, I see no reason why they wouldn't utilize them. If not in cooking, then in medicine. Insect life also offers both caloric and medicinal boons. Vigor wasps make a honey-filled fluid that heals, and the insects themselves are potential food, as are vespoids, emperor hoppers, carrier ants, wiggly lychee grubs, vaperonoids, all easy sources of protein. Fish are another relatively easy food source, and the rivers are chock full of options. Climbing joyperch, pink paraxis, arowana, wetfish, tuna, marlin, sushi fish, and gaoju. I could easily see Vulpimancers gathering around a river during spawning runs, like brown bears on Earth. Under poultry, we have the Revulture and the Kula Yaku, both easy prey so long as the Vulpins can catch them. For reasons I'll get into later, the Kula Yaku becomes a very favorite target of these aliens. The pterosaur like Murnos is also easy game, though maybe more useful as a method of transportation.
Can we please buy a new saddle? Riding bareback is terrifying.
For the fleet-footed juveniles, geckos and hares make for good snacks and training for bigger prey in the future. And when it comes to red meat, the options branch out even more. The two larger herbivores that most predators hunt here are Aptonoth and Kestodon. Aptonoth are the fandom bicycle of Monster Hunter. Everyone here has ridden them. And while not defenseless, these armored hadrosaur-like monsters often end up being fodder for predators in cutscenes. With tools and coordination, I can easily see Vulpimancers hunting them. Kestodon are even easier game, as their charges are easily dodged and the thick-headed dinosaurs become stunned briefly after. Even a lone Vulpimancer adult could bring one down. An even easier source of food is the moss swine, the source of half of green eggs and ham. These pigs the size of hippos are pacifists and won't fight back. Normally, they rely on their camouflage to hide them from predators. A kind of moss grows on their back, allowing them to hunker down and wait out the storm. This is entirely useless against the Vulpimancers, whose thermal imagery make the moss swine stand out like a sore thumb. Yeah, Wild Mutt's getting some bacon. Last but not least in the prey category is the Puki. Now these wyverns are large and have some power behind them, being able to launch globs of toxin, spray toxic gases, and use its huge prehensile tongue to batter foes. To make matters worse, this herbivorous wyvern is very aggressive. At first. However, once they realize they're in and over their heads, they tend to become far more docile and skittish. Now their meat is heavy in toxins, making them an unappetizing target, and while Vulpimancers have shown a resistance to toxins, this coupled with their cantankerous disposition would be enough to fend off most. But a pack of adult Vulpimancers, each 2 to 3 tons, can absolutely bring one down. So whether it's for food, toxins, or parts, the Puki is going to learn quickly to fly away if the big orange beasties show up. And this brings me to a point about the Vulpimancer's ability to catch food. Sure, these aliens are fast, strong, and have extremely good senses. They can run down most prey, overpower them, and use pack hunting tactics to corral game into kill zones. They're highly intelligent, and could likely use pincer maneuvers, or chasing prey off cliffs, or even utilizing fire to help direct prey towards areas where they can more easily be dispatched. But they are bright orange. On their home planet, the local flora is orange. Here in the New World, hell, the whole planet, not so orange. And to make matters worse, the Vulpins can't even tell how much they stand out. The only saving grace here is that the understory and tunnels of the ancient forest are quite dark, which means the places Vulpins like the most are their best shot of utilizing stealth. But on the plains, beaches, or even on the outermost branches of trees, it's like the world's most unfair copy of Where's Waldo. So while the food options are great, the Vulpimancer's anti-camouflage makes things a bit harder. And oh boy, does it only get harder from here.
100 stars to the world. So sweet, so easy on the eyes, but hideous on the inside. Whole life spinning lies, but you can't hide, baby. Nice try.
The most common and widespread competitor Vulpimancers will have to deal with are the Jaguars. These polar bear-sized reptiles are high-energy pack hunters, swarming prey with sheer force of numbers. Notably savage, they can tear apart smaller game in minutes, voraciously chowing down while the prey is still alive. Despite this, they're a somewhat cowardly predator. If a member of their pack is injured or killed, they'll quickly disperse. They may even feast on the carcass of their fallen packmate. But they won't hesitate to attack wounded game, even if it's a monster over 10 times their size. Regular packs of Jaguars are no match for a pack of Vulpins. With adults far larger and far more intelligent and coordinated, the smaller lizards would scatter for the trees shortly after the encounter. But they may stand their ground if their big boss is around. The Great Jaguars is a... I'm sorry. You gotta see if this guy... It's like if Godzilla was a stoner. Look at this dude.
Can you eat pussy like that?
The Great Jaguar is a male jaguar that has undergone a hormonal growth stage. 4 times the size of its packmates. This individual makes up their muscle. It will come if the smaller jaguars call for it, and with its huge throat pouch it can swallow prey up to its own size whole. While the Great Jaguar grapples with the target, the smaller jaguars will harass, bite, and slash at the prey, making escape all but impossible. However, this works best on singular targets, and while a Great Jaguar could swallow an adult Vulpimancer whole, the aliens are probably too quick for this to be a reliable method. The relatively slow ambush strike that the Great Jaguars use is highly telegraphed to an organism that can sense their body temperature from across the forest floor. And if the pack starts to injure the Great Jaguars, its smaller packmates may turn on it, with other males looking to eventually usurp them and not missing an opportunity. I think Vulpimancers will be able to push Jaguars around without too much difficulty. It won't take them long to figure out the Jaguars' flowchart-like behavior and manipulate it to their benefit. A lone Vulpin could be targeted, but such an occurrence is unlikely. Next is the Nightshade Paolumu, a giant, bat-like wyvern that can instantly inflate a huge neck pouch to float and propel itself in the air. Okay, we're going from stoner to high society socialite, bit of a culture shock here. What makes these wyverns dangerous is their breath. No, seriously. This Paolumu can emit a narcotic gas that induces sleep if they breathe it in. Jesus Christ, should I call Chris Hansen? This is the first predator I've ever seen that uses chloroform. And not real world chloroform, that takes a while to knock you out. This is like movie chloroform. Instant. Despite losing all their turf wars, the Nightshade Paolumu is still a very threatening animal, and I can't think of much the Vulpins could do besides avoid them. Only thing in the Vulpin's favor is, again, that thermal imagery sense. Hard to chloroform someone when they can always see you coming. But if a Nightshade Paolumu gets the drop on a Vulpin, it could be in danger. I say it could because this big bat really relies on the gas. They aren't great fighters, and if you can ambush one or ignore them, they tend to die easily. Also, puncturing that throat pouch could make them pop like a balloon, sending them flying about. And now to talk about all the predators and or dangerous fauna that are a direct threat to the Vulpimancers. Now, I could go through each and every one individually, but that would take a long time considering the amount of options we have to deal with here. So I'm going to do it in song form! Engineat Basilgoose, Deviljo, Bambaro, Ebony, Odogaroon, Glavinus, Tiger, Xiangaruda, Kushaladora, Rathalos, Nakarkuga, Toby Kadashi, Zin, Ogre, Rathian, and don't forget the Black Veil Halhazak. With that out of the way, let's go into a bit more detail. Most of these guys are avoidable, thankfully. With human-level intelligence, things like traps, walls, moats, nets, scents, pheromones, these are all options the Vulpimancers can use to avoid them. But some are tricky to deal with. The Banbaros.
It's Banbaro time!
Is a large herbivore usually not native to this region, but they are incredibly powerful and respond to predation attempts like how bison help the human population by targeting the dumbest of tourists. Banbaros swing their heavy heads and horn to bludgeon would-be attackers, flinging rocks and trees as cannonballs. Vulpins will avoid them at all costs. Deviljos are a giant, theropodal T-Rex pickle with an insatiable appetite and an obsession with Rick and Morty Season 2. Because of this, they fly into a rage the mere sight of any other living thing. Jokes aside, they are insatiably hungry and constantly searching for food. Like a giant shrew, their metabolism is so demanding, they have to devour everything in sight or risk starvation. Deviljos are also nomadic, so while they'll never be common, there's always a risk of one popping up. One of the few animals capable of utilizing Dragon Element, a dangerous substance of raw power that causes additional damages and reduces the effects of other elemental attacks. Equipped with an adrenaline-boosted Rage mode, this is another monster to be avoided at all costs. The Basilgoose is a heavily armored, fire-breathing wyvern, also with anger issues. They prefer to ambush prey and rivals alike by dive-bombing them from the air, using their hard and superheated scales to make the impact hurt even more. Basilgoose shed scales frequently, and while you might think they could be collected and weaponized against them, they can, but they also explode. Like the last few, Basilgoose needs to be avoided at all costs. By far the biggest threat to Vulpins are the Nargacuga. These massive, panther-like wyverns are stealthy ambush hunters that utilize lightning-fast speeds to slice up prey before they know what hit them. The leopard of the New World, these glide-capable monsters have sharpened wingtips on their patagium, or gliding membranes, that they can use to cut prey and rival alike down to size. A primarily nocturnal predator, they can even fire quills from their prehensile tail. Every end of this monster is sharp and dangerous. The big reason these are without a doubt the most dangerous monster for the Vulpimancers to deal with is their ambush tactics. Nargacuga will find a spot hidden in the treetops or on a cliff and wait for the perfect moment some unsuspecting creature strolls beneath. They will then dive bomb the target, cutting them to ribbons. This long-distance ambush might actually be fast enough to strike before the thermal imagery of the Vulpimancers can sense them. Just about any other predator on this continent is incapable of ambushing these aliens thanks to the warning sense. But speed, distance, and blades that can slice through solid wood, Nargacugas could. Now, like leopards on Earth, these are intelligent and cautious animals that wait for the perfect moment to strike, which means they may hesitate to attack if they see a group. Despite this, they do pick fights with larger creatures, like our next potential threat. Likewise, they should be avoided at all costs. And finally, we have to talk about wrath. No, not that wrath. Though it's very funny to me that both Monster Hunter and Ben 10 have wrath. Rathalos and Rathian, two names for the males and females of a single species. These large, highly mobile wyverns are often apex predators of any habitat they dwell in. With fire glands, venom glands, a thin but dense and flexible armor, and most importantly, high intelligence, they are often an oppressing presence. Like all giant predators here, Vulpins would do well to avoid them. Or so you'd think. A mated pair of Rathalos and Rathian are strongly dedicated parents, both protecting the young in their specialist ways. Rathalos are better flyers and will patrol from the sky, while the heavier set Rathian will stay on the ground patrolling their territory. But given their large size, smaller nest raiders are a threat they struggle to kill, at least without hurting their eggs. The intelligence of these wyverns can't be understated. They can recognize the intent of humans in the area, and should a hunter approach without a weapon, they're usually not attacked. More importantly, Mother Rathians encourage smaller carnivores to nest in their territory, to better protect their nests from raiders. If, per se, a smart and social alien species could use their incredible senses and speed to kill smaller game, while the Wrath pair keep larger threats away, perhaps this is the start of a potential partnership. Now, in most episodes of Can They Survive, this would be where the buck stops. But we have to talk about something we don't normally touch on: Sophons. Sophons are defined as a being with human-level intelligence or higher. Rare in most fictional ecosystems, the New World has a lot. Almost too many to quantify. Let's start with the actual natives of the New World. Grimalkine are a native species of feline that occupies a hunter-gatherer niche and exhibit multiple cultures. The bug trappers are the ones native to the ancient forest, but they're also the protectors of the wildspire wastes, the troopers of the coral highlands, and the plunderers of the rotten vales. The boa boa of the hoarfrost reach may also be part of the species, but they could be a subspecies or another related genus. All of these cultures weave clothing and art, make weapons and tools, have traditions, beliefs, and concepts just like humans do, making them Sophons. Vulpimancers have a bad track record with other intelligent beings. That being said, they still have a desire to make first contact and aren't inherently aggressive, even willing to communicate with beings that mean them harm. Given how most Grimmelkinds are actually quick to trust outsiders after witnessing them perform hunts, I have no doubt the ancestors of modern Grimmelkinds and Vulpimancers will be happy to ally. The Grimmelkind get a strong, pack-hunting friend that can offer some much-needed muscle, and the Vulpins would like to have deft-handed tinkerers to help make tools and other utility things. It might also be helpful to get some people who can help you blend in a bit better. Another Soundfont of the New World is the Gajalaka. It's unclear if these are felines or hominids, but they also show all the same signs of intelligence as others, making tools and art and dancing. They're notably more aggressive to outsiders, especially humans and other members of the guild. Gajalaka are famous for their weapons being covered in various toxins, with a wide variety of after effects. Often engaged in localized warfare, they are very much not united, so even if you befriend one tribe, others may still respond with hostility. While hard to get to know, if you can master their unique language, they can be reasoned with, and called upon to aid when fighting larger monsters. It's unlikely the Vulpins would facilitate their unity, but some tribes could definitely be won over, and it's not like the Vulpins haven't built a universal translator before. The Rats are highly intelligent monsters akin to elephants, but there's another beast with a brain to back up its brawn walking about. The Glavenus, a theropod-like monster with a giant blade on its tail. Its intelligence comes from how its infamous weapon is used and leveraged. Its tail is coated in specific metal ores, as are its jaws. The shape of its jaws are strange, poorly equipped for hunting, but well suited for sharpening its own tail over time. The tail's metallic properties are highly flammable, allowing it to be superheated for additional damage. Not only does the Glavenus seek out metal ores to ingest to provide fuel, but it's well documented to use the flammable, glowing tail for intimidation against other large monsters. While seemingly aggressive, they tend to avoid combat and use confident roaring and showing off its glowing red-hot tail to scare off rivals. Most importantly, felines and Grimmelkinds have been documented translating for Glavenus, communicating with them, and engaging with trades. This shows that the Glavenus is far more intelligent than most people consider. Vulpimancers aren't stupid, and their thermal imagery would act as a very early warning system to the Glavenus in the area. It's hard to say how these species would interact at first, and if violence is the only answer or not. And last, but not least, or least in my eyes, the Guild.
Dinkelberg.
I'm gonna make it clear. I don't like these guys. I thought I didn't like the Monster Hunter series, but it turns out I just don't like the Guild. They come across as caring about the wildlife and wanting to coexist with other monsters, but more often not, and especially in the New World, their answer is always the same. Kill first, ask questions later. God, they're like fucking big game PETA members. Don't believe me? In the story of Monster Hunter World, the player has to kill a Kuliyaku, a fairly harmless egg-eater from an area just to set up a new base camp. And it's not a clean kill, the poor theropod was slashed at for minutes before going down. Later on, in a desperate and arguably glory-hungry seeking bid to capture an Elder Dragon, the Guild Commission orders all potentially troublesome animals around their city of Astra killed. This included slaying an Anjanath that had been keeping its distance from the city for almost 50 years. All of which just to bombard and exhaust an Elder Dragon that had left them alone for centuries. A bit after that, just to make air travel more efficient, the player has to kill a Legiana, an apex predator vital to maintaining populations of herbivores in the Coral Highlands. The Guild is always quick to resort to culling, and this, my viewers, is almost always a bad way to deal with problem animals. In fact, it more frequently causes animals to become reliant on humans, if not man-eaters. Most predators only target humans when desperate, too injured to target normal prey, or when their prey animals are depleted. Attempting to kill large predators as a preventative measure is incredibly risky, as if the hunter fails, the wounded animal is now more likely to target humans. And if cullings are successful, the gap in the ecosystem is actually filled beyond capacity faster than if they had been left alone. When excess elephants are killed beyond the ranges of wildlife reserves in East Africa, the population within its borders just continues to breed just as fast, if not faster than before, since there's no elephant populations beyond the borders to keep them in. If the populations were allowed to grow and stabilize, This would help keep the populations inside the borders stable. Plus, shooting elephants from a helicopter tends to cause post-traumatic stress disorder for any survivors. Not exactly ethical. And to make matters worse, the Guild is doing all of this on a continent far beyond their normal reach, inserting their authority and assuming they know the best, even if there are other beings that coexisted with the local monsters there for centuries. They even call it the New World. How more obvious can you make it? This is the Americas or Hokkaido all over again. I could go on and on about this. The Guild says they want to learn, but all they do is destroy. I'm going to stop myself, though, before I take this rant any further and my editor cuts me off. So, how does the Vulpimancer adapt? I'm not done yet! And another thing! The Guild doesn't even understand how species work. They still classify Rathalos and Rathian as the same species. They call anything with a different color a subspecies, even if it's just a coloration difference. And they even know what a real subspecies is! They know how different populations isolated by geography or behavior exist. They throw around terms like variant, deviant, or alternate form willy-nilly, when all that translates to the same thing! What? And we're getting more of this instead of a new Mega Man game, Capcom! What the I have been informed by my legal team and therapist that I need to calm down. So how would Vulpimancers interact with the Guild? Well, I doubt the Guild would consider them Soundfonts worth protecting, at least at first. They kill intelligent animals and other beings like the Atakal and Glavenus, despite knowing that they're capable of being thinkers, that they are beings. I think they treat the Vulpins the same, or at least try to. See, humans, and the Guild by proxy, are not native to the New World. They only came to it recently in the last 50 years. Which means we can give the Vulpins a head start. So, what is our overall assessment of how these aliens fare? The habitat is near perfect. There's plenty of food. Normally, the abundance of dangerous wildlife would be a major hindrance, but with the exception of the Nargacuga, the Vulpimancers are more than capable of avoiding fights they can't win. And it's not like they didn't already have large ambush predators on their homeworld, like the giant serpent, so these alien invaders should do just fine. We'll be dropping them into the New World 1,000 years before the Guild arrives, to give them time to get adjusted to the new terrain. For our Spec Evos, these will be 10 to 15 million years later, but we'll also have a history portion for you that will come at the end of this episode. The Vulsloth. High up in the trees of the ancient forest, if one looks closely, you may find a strange addition. Covered in a photosynthetic algae and doing its best impression of a clump of plant matter is the Vulsloth. This sect of Vulpimancer descendants were those who moved into the treetops to avoid the giant predators below. Even so, arboreal and aerial threats remained, and with bright orange fur, they made for easy targets. Fortune favored the slow and lethargic. Vulpins with lower metabolisms were able to hide out for longer. By staying still and motionless, it made them better hidden. But that restful approach had another benefit. Local species of algae and plant matter found this coarse fur a wonderful ecosystem to grow in. This additional green, only growing on large patches on Vulpins who keep fast movement to a minimum, finally worked to fix their camouflage issues, making them more of a yellow-green. Much better to hide from the many reptilian predators who use sight. Vulsloths are primarily herbivorous, as fruits, nuts, and leaves can't flee at high speeds. This dietary shift came long before the algae took root, as the upper canopy lacked bigger game. Their only options were pack hunting small game that can easily escape on thin branches, or pivoting towards a more vegetarian lifestyle. What appears as a beak is deceitful. It's actually very derived, specialized teeth. The upper and lower incisors have merged, and became the only teeth in the animal's adult mouth. Juveniles have a more ancestral dentary, but as it loses its baby teeth, their proper beak grows in. Like a parrot, or more comparably a grosbeak, made for cropping off tough leaves and crushing hard nuts. Like Earth's modern tree sloths, what may appear pathetic is a viable strategy long term. Such effective camouflage, combined with a low-calorie diet and minimal movement, makes for a decently stealthy herbivore that can usually avoid being detected. Also, like sloths, and like their ancestors, they reproduce slowly, only one offspring at a time, and it may take years to mature. Despite that, they are a common sight in the ancient forest, if you know where to look. Many monsters prey on them. Ironically, it's often flying wyverns like the descendants of Wrath that prey on them. Excellent vision and airborne maneuverability makes it easier to snatch the bear-sized aliens off of treetops. Retaining the heat gills of their ancestors, the large, warm-blooded threats can be detected from almost a mile away. This early warning system can be the difference between life and death, and animals like the Tobi-Kadashi and the Nargacuga are often spotted before they get close enough to ambush. Despite their sluggish appearance, full sloths can book it over short distances. When preyed upon by flying wyverns, these aliens' first and only defense is to simply drop to the forest floor, risking the dark undergrowth over an aerial predator. Usually this works out, as most airborne predators are much less likely to brave the thicket of the forest floor. But other dangers reside here, some more familiar than the Vulsloth would like to admit. Vulpimancer. Patrolling the dark forest floor of the ancient forest and beyond is a new pack hunter. While historically monsters like Jagras held this role, there is now an intruder in this niche. Packs of 6 to 12 Vulpimancers stalk the darker corners of the New World. These polar bear-sized aliens are highly intelligent, organized pursuit predators. Longer legs and sleeker builds allow for higher speeds, and a wide torso with large lung analogs help pumping oxygen into their bodies. The longer tail is a stabilizer at high turns, akin to a cheetah. Their metacarpals have elongated even more, especially on the forelimbs, and as such they're now poor climbers compared to ancestral Vulpimancers. They may be small for New World predators, but they're very widespread. If there's any Earth animal these aliens are comparable to, it's the African hunting dog. Like them, these Vulpins are highly communicative, making decisions on when and where to hunt as a pack. There's little direct leadership, just a primary breeding pair that discourage others from breeding. Despite occasional fights, each pack member is highly loyal and will readily run into battle against much larger foes to save another. In more open terrain, Vulpimancers face greater competition from animals like Jagras. The monster's greater visual acuity allows them better spatial awareness of large distances. But in the dark, cluttered terrain, the Vulpimancer's thermal imagery gives them a strong edge. Thanks to this niche partitioning, both pack hunters can be found at the same locations, but each's home habitat they hold dominance. Their ideal prey are Aptonoth and Kestodon, once again the forever punching bag of monster hunters. Unlike Vulsloths, they have even left the ancient forests, though they are not nearly as numerous or successful as the populations there. Wildspire wastes and the coral highlands both support their own subspecies, each camouflaged to better suit the new habitat. Behaviorally, they're all similar to the ancestral form, though. As I stated, they compete heavily with Jagras. Both pack hunters rely on similar tactics, but there's a twist. Jagras hunt savagely, using sheer force of numbers and ferocity. Vulpimancers employ much more coordination, precision, and cooperative tactics to bring down game. Prey is more likely to escape the Jagras, but Jagras have a quicker time making the kill and devouring the remains. Vulpimancers are more successful hunters, but it takes them longer to make the kill and feast. As such, Jagras, especially packs led by Great Jagras, often use force of muscle to try and steal kills from the aliens. And sometimes, against smaller or less experienced packs, they do. But more often than not, the Vulpimancer's greater intelligence wins them the day. In the scuffle over a carcass, the Lupins will target one member of the Jagras pack, inflicting as many injuries onto it as possible. The Jagras will turn tail and hide as soon as one member shows significant injury, or worse, turn on their own packmate, allowing the Lupins to drag their kill away in the distraction. Despite their success, Vulpimancers often scatter at the approach of larger monsters, making sure no member of the pack is left behind. If one member is targeted by a larger predator, the others will dive in, biting, barking, and overall harassing it until a mistake is made and their packmate will escape, which is often the case in regards to Ursamancer, or Kidoko. The largest and most solitary of the Vulpimancer descendants, this great beast prowls the undergrowth of the ancient forest, looking for whatever calories suit its current fancy. This is the Ursamancer, or Kidoko. Omnivorous aliens that live much like Earth's bears, but the size of a large triceratops at 30 feet, or 10 meters in length, and weighing up to 10 tons. Cantankerous at best, these grouchy beasts are easily agitated if given even the slightest reason. Most of their diet is plant matter, namely berries, mushrooms, roots, tubers, and leaves, though vespoids make up most of the animal matter in their stomachs. It has been recorded that Kidokus would usually hunt down vespoids and eat the innards. This may be the source of the toxins in their highly specialized quills. This trait is what allows the Ursamancer's brazen attitude. Vespoids are known for their paralyzing toxin, and over generations, Kidokus have evolved an immunity alongside using it. It's usually to gain an advantage when fighting other kinds of monsters, such as packs of Jagras or larger predators. Usually for self-defense, more intelligent predators, like Xenogas, Nargacuga, or even Wraths, will often think twice of disturbing the great alien bear. Not that they couldn't win, all these predators would win if it came to a turf war, but the effort simply isn't worth the pain of all those toxic quills and the alien's bad attitude. Ursamancers can even fire these quills over long distances with shocking accuracy. Side note, real-life porcupines cannot shoot their quills. That is an old wives' tale. This is a fictional creature, and the fact that I have it doing so does not reflect real-life nature in this case. Real-life porcupines cannot shoot quills. All that being said, while Kidokus have a reputation for violence, it's actually a partial bluff. It's not that the alien thinks it can win against any opponent, it's that their aggression is their only option. Too large and slow to outrun threats, it has to hold its ground and hope for the best. Like Earth's honey badger, the bravado is a bluff from an organism that can't always escape. This is most obvious when territorial Anjanaths or roaming deviljos pass through. Kidoku won't even try to intimidate these predators, and will do whatever they can to hide when their roars are heard through the jungle. No point in trying to scare off a creature that would rather die than go hungry. They tend to be solitary and will fight over territories and dens. Signs of socialization are shown between mates and cubs. Burrows in particular are a major commodity for them, as they are vital for rearing cubs. The forest is a dangerous place, especially to tiny cubs who lack their mother's venomous quills. Females will stock up on calories heavily before the cubs are born, so she can then guard the den as long as possible. Her violence and fury are the only things standing between the young and a myriad of predators, most particularly the Jagras. Cubs will remain with her for nearly 10 years as they grow quite slowly. Mortality is high, but once they reach the age where they're finally independent, they develop their toxic quills to defend themselves. As one can imagine, populations of Kidoku are small. With limited space, slow growth, and a high death rate of offspring, these hyper-specialized aliens maintain a thin balance. But it's a balance nonetheless, and these aliens can be found anywhere in the ancient forest. The Uvamancer, Anjarath, Xenogar, Wrath. These three great beasts are well known as the rulers of the ancient forest, at least during the day. The night has long been the domain of the Nargacuga, unchallenged as its nocturnal king. Or so it was thought. But a new challenger has forced the night's blade to partition its niche. Another great predator of the night, and its name is the Uvamancer. Like its ancestor, the Uvamancer uses its gills to see around it with thermal imagery. At some point, these ancestral Vulpimancers began to utilize a new food source: dragonfall berries. These bioenergy-filled fruits are a powerful force for beings that can survive them. Not many can. But a few aliens did. The power flowing through them accelerated their growth and strength. Only slightly smaller than a Nargacuga itself, this burly brute alien is a grappling predator. They approach their targets in an ambush, grabbing with powerful arms and jaws that can snap a tree in half. Saber-teeth analogs, each as long as a human is tall, are their weapons for dispatch. A long prehensile tail, equipped with a hidden retractable blade, would stab repeatedly into prey, bleeding them out while the great alien crushes them. Vulpimancers are nocturnal nightmares, managing to ambush and overpower nearly anything caught, and it's due to the Dragon Fellberry's last additional trait. When the Vulpimancer closes in on prey, its gills open and release a thick, vaporous mist. This violet cloud is odorless, tasteless, but so thick that in moments, a monster can be engulfed in blackness. Animals in the night, no matter how good their night vision, soon find themselves blind. Light does not pass through this mist, especially in the dark of night. During the day, this mist is a deep purple, and while stifling, the sun can at least be dimly glimpsed through it. But at night, its blanket is absolute. Like the ancestral Vulpimancers, the Vulpimancer needs no light to sense its prey. Once cornered, it goes in for the kill. Even the great apexes, like Nargacuga, Anjanath, or Wrath, can fall victim to this tactic. If they wander into such a mist, then no amount of skill can save them. The only creatures that manage to escape are those that thrash wildly, in as many directions as possible, in hopes that luck will allow them to strike their foe. But more often than not, anything already caught in that mist is soon to be dead. The Vulpimancer will sneak in quietly, then grapple them to the ground and quickly employ their giant tusks and piercing tail to make a quick kill, cutting arteries and suffocating prey through the windpipe. Nargacuga and Vulpimancer are rivals, both relying on the night to best make their kills. Both target the same kind of game, animals like Aptonoth and Kestodon. Turf wars between them are common. But just like in real-world predators, slight differences makes enough wiggle room to coexist. Being ambush hunters, Vulpimancers tend to go longer between kills and are less picky about their choice of game. Nargacugas are pursuit predators that rely on speed to overwhelm prey. It's actually quite common for one to interfere with the hunts of the other. Nargacuga will scatter game out of the Vulpimancer's reach, or Vulpimancers will grapple and pin game that Nargacuga was chasing. Like lions and hyenas, which use different methods to tackle the same prey, they manage to maintain an uneasy truce. They're still competing with each other, make no mistake, but not to the point of driving each other extinct. That kind of competition is rare. But the Vulpimancer is not all violence. They are still intelligent, social beings. Adults live in pairs, hunting together unless they have young, in which case one will stay at den with the cubs. Mating for life, they raise their young tenderly, taking care of the little lint balls for decades before they're left on their own. Their powerful forelimbs are just as adept at digging burrows as they are for grappling monsters. The Vulpimancer and Kidoku share a common ancestor. It's these burrows that Vulpimancers dwell in during the day. They casually fill it with mist, the purple gas gently leaking from the entrance. While this may seem antagonistic to survival, any potential predator that descends into the tunnels is doomed for starvation, or worse. To protect their young, these dense gas-filled burrows are entirely without light. It's impossible to know if an adult is a few feet away or not, and the young are usually able to escape any blinded predator that wanders in. The tunnels also feature dead ends, splits, and circles. They're well marked for the thermal vision of the aliens, but many monsters can get lost in here easily, making for easy game. They live out largely peaceful lives in the ancient forest, undisturbed by everything but the occasional elder dragons. When the Vulpins first appeared in the ancient forest, their early days were a struggle. With no vision, they didn't understand at first why prey seemed to know they were coming, or how the great monsters were able to pick them out of the brush with ease. It was further made to be hellish by the sheer amount of giant apex predators running about. To be fair, it's not like the Vulpins were defenseless. Nearly elephant-sized pack hunters with high coordination and the same tool usage as early humans are a force to be reckoned with. And the deeper parts of the ancient forest, with tunnels to boot, provided a safe haven. It was barely a month into their introduction that they met the natives. It took very little time for the Grimalkins to establish communications. Given their propensity to be able to speak with even monsters like the Glavenus, the complex language of the Vulpimancers was simple by comparison. While cautious, the Vulpins quickly took to their new friends. Having a set of eyes to watch their backs, help tutor them on the local flora and fauna, and even guide in hunts was a huge benefit. And for their part, the Grimalkine were happy to have more muscle to back them up. While great fighters in their own right, their tiny stature made injuries common. Now they had some power in their corner. And the Vulpimancers had some good ideas too. Not that the Grimalkine were immediately on board with it. After being told who the apex predators of the forest were and how they operated, the Vulpimancers were keen to make a deal with the apexes. Some brave Vulpins crept deep into the territory of Arathian. They found her nest and dug a small indentation just big enough to hide themselves. And then they waited. Waited until the sneaky Kulayaku, which was herded there by their feline companions, made a go at the Rathian's eggs. In a loud burst of protracted violence, the Vulpimancers charged and killed the Kulayaku, being none too quiet about it in the process. The body had scarcely dropped when the mother Rathian returned, riled up into a rage. Now came the tense part. The Rathian was seeing red, but the scents she could smell were strange. One was the familiar scent of an egg thief, bathed in tangy blood. But the others were strange, totally alien to her nostrils. The leader of the pack picked up the Kula's limp body, holding it highly, then tossed it in front of the angry mother wyvern. She growled, but looked over the situation. 5 strange, orange creatures smelling unlike anything she's seen before. Her eggs untouched, all of them present. Her growl softened, and hesitantly she reached down and plucked up the Kulayaku's body. The Vulpins parted as she walked to her nest, and she separated the carcass like a butcher. In a flurry of wing beats that disturbed all the surrounding foliage, the male Rathalos descended into the clearing. He immediately locked onto the Vulpins and roared, only for the Rathian to roar at him back. The Rathalos looked to their mate in brief confusion, then took a moment longer to analyze the scene. Snarling in disappointment at not being able to kill, he took off once more, disappearing into the sky. The mother Rathian began to devour her carcass, still eyeing the Vulpimancers with optimistic caution. Over the next year, this same pack of Vulpins would return to the nest. One would take turns patrolling the perimeter, while the others lounged around the nest. Often they would bring meat, usually from Kulayakus. The mother Rathian warmed to their scent quickly, accepting them as mesopredators to take out potential predators of her babies. The gifts of additional food, so she didn't have to hunt as often, were an additional boon, and it quickened the pace of her tolerance. Even better in her eyes, as these beasts seemed content to stay in sight, and even brought in extra food. Over time, they would come slightly and slightly closer. And eventually, her eggs hatched. While at first the Rathian wouldn't allow anything near them, the babies couldn't be contained forever. And when the Rathlets wanted to play and investigate the alien babysitters, they proved themselves to be viable playmates. After an additional year, the Rath pair would leave their eggs in the care of the Vulpins, unsupervised. The pack brought in others, even some of their Grimalkine friends once the felines saw the Vulpins return alive multiple times. This trick would be repeated by the Vulpins and Grimalkines for several decades, until a large portion of the Rath population were tolerant or even friendly to the Vulpimancers and Grimalkine, especially as more and more young Rathlets grew up in the aliens' presence. Over time, this association led to a slight domestication, with Vulpins and Grimalkines being able to hitch rides on their semi-domestic wyverns. The Rats themselves were shaped by this process. While the Vulpins understood every wyvern on their side was a boon, they did tend to favor feeding babies that looked cute to them, selecting wyverns with traits more akin to their own young, especially with a large underbite, big feet, and long limbs. This created a population that visually differed from their more wild cousins. Not exactly domesticated, but like India's elephants, they can work for food and affection from the local people. But having anything akin to an apex on your side made life far safer. In fact, lives improved greatly for the Grimalkine and Vulpimancers. Their cooperation with the Rats made it so other dangerous predators rarely ever bothered them. For centuries, the three species lived in relative peace. An uncharacteristic envoy from the Gajalaka approached the Vulpimancer and Grimalkine confederacy. Something had disturbed their ancestral home. Something large, powerful, and dangerous had displaced them. They could not defeat it themselves. After centuries of on and off truces, this could unify the Galajaka and cement their allyship with the Confederacy. The Vulpins and Grimalkines agreed. They would spend a small task force, elite packs of Vulpimancer game hunters, and Grimalkine riders specialized for diverting and scaring off large monsters who got too close to settlements. The pack made quick time, following the Gajalaka down tunnels of bioenergy-fueled crystals. It was a long journey, and a pack of wraths was brought as transportation. Down past the bodies of elder dragons, their bones picked clean. The homes of Gajalaka were crushed along with weapons and bodies. So many bodies of Gajalaka and monsters alike. It was clear this creature was not going to be chased off. At the center of the killing field was a large black beast, covered in thorns and spikes. Its head was buried in the still gasping body of a Kushaladora. The pack descended on the beast without a word, knowing an ambush was their only chance. Two Vulpimancers each tackled the creature's limbs, trying to pin it down while their leader latched onto the back of the head. Their Grimalkine rider plunged a spear made from the chin spike keratin of a Rathian into the back of Nergigante's neck. Despite this, the Bane of Elder Dragons reared up and roared in defiance, throwing the aliens on its limbs into the crystals around it. The spear had plunged deep and true, but it wasn't enough for a monster of this caliber. Nergigante thrusted its wings down and blew through the roof of the cavern, each wing beat taking it and the two would-be hunters clinging on for dear life. They shattered layers of crystal as they flew higher and higher. With one arm clinging tightly to her Vulpin steed, the Grimalkine pulled a tiny whistle from her pouch and blew hard, the silent call inaudible to the Butcher of Elders who carried them higher. Her Vulpimancer steed dug their claws and teeth into Nergigante's skin, the iron-tough hide offering little defense, but it was all they could do to hang on. Once they cleared the highest reach of the crystals, Nergigante started to reach over its shoulder, trying to grasp the alien and feline on its back. The Vulpin shifted away from the Dragon Eater, its thermal imagery making it nearly impossible for Nergigante to catch them by surprise. While this distracted the great beast, the Grimalkine rider climbed higher, still lodged in the demon's neck. Just out of reach, if she could plunge it in deeper, maybe she could finish this fight before anyone else got hurt. Suddenly, the great beast stalled, pitching hard to the left as it began to spiral. The force of the wind was too strong, both Grimalkine and Alien holding on for dear life under the high G-forces. With a clawed fist, Nergigante pummeled the Vulpimancer, sending it tumbling into the air, pulling several spikes with it. Their rider called out in vain, unable to do anything but watch as their friends spun away in the air. Now Nergigante focused all its attention on the Grimalkine. It clawed at its own head, trying to pick her out like a tick. Wedged between spikes on its neck, she barely avoided being crushed multiple times. Over the howl of the wind, a new sound was buffeted in, barely noticeable for a second, before its source collided with Nergigante like a cannonball. Our Grimalkine rider smiled, as the pink Rathian and her cohort of male Rathalos, their rides here, had flown in at the call of their allies to aid them in their time of need. The pink Rathian locked her jaws around Nergigante's neck, stabbing with her chin spike while her talons raked over his skin. One of the Rathalos had picked up the dislodged Vulpimancer, and were circling above, while his brothers bit and slashed at whatever portion of the Elder Devourer was exposed. In the hectic flurry of combat, our Grimalkine took the initiative to leap forward and latch onto her spear, her weight pushing it even further in. Despite feeling the pain, Nergigante could not do anything about it. It was too caught up in fending off the various wyverns attacking it from every angle. Our Grimalkine rider braced her feet against the monster's neck, changed her ankle, and pushed it right into the beast's brainstem. Nergigante stopped moving instantly, its body going limp. Our Grimalkine rider climbed onto the pink Rathian, and once she was over, the Rathian released the Elder Beast and flapped, killing their downward momentum. The body of their opponent slammed into the ground with an unceremonious thump. Cheers, howls, and roars erupted from the voracious hunters. Not a single one had perished in the fight, and now the Gajalaka had their homeland back. When the group had been safely reunited and injuries treated, the Gajalaka invited them to their home for a celebratory feast. They had found a large, strange blue glowing egg underneath their lands, which was delicious, served up with a vinaigrette and some fava beans.
Did you just eat the baby?
Eventually, the First Fleet did arrive. They did so under the intent of studying an old tale of elder dragons gathering here. As they did so, they converted their boat into a port city, and named it Astera. Grimalkine watched them from the forest, curious of the work of these strangers. The taller, bipedal ones that vaguely resembled apes were clearly in charge. Several of the feline people similar to the Grimalkine worked amongst them, mostly doing menial labor. When they reported back to the Confederacy, the overall consensus was to observe, but wait to make contact. They didn't need to wait long. In less than a week, a hunter from the First Fleet had killed a young Rathalos. The Gajalaka wanted to call for war, and some of the Vulpimancers even agreed with them. This young Rathalos had been one they had raised. Surprisingly, most of the Grimalkine wanted to establish proper contact, especially the other Lineans. The few Glavinus who had joined also voted for war, but with sheer numbers, the Grimalkines managed to sway the votes. A Grimalkine, Vulpimancer, and Gajalaka made the trek to Astera, walking out in the open and plainly visible for anyone paying attention. Even so, they were nearly at the gates when the alarm sounded. It took little time for the Grimalkine and Palicos to establish a rough translation, especially aided with translation devices the Vulpimancers had built over a century earlier to better commune with other creatures, like the Glavinus and the budding intellect of their domesticated Rathalos. The Guild Commission was here to study the Elder Migration, which had mysteriously stopped a century earlier. The population was mostly hunters, with a few merchants and only 2 technicians to their name. Immediately they asked if the Confederacy would help them get further into the jungle, and provide them with any monster parts for building armor or weapons. This got a snarl from both Vulpin and Gajalaka. Their Grimalkine translator told them that this was too low a priority to discuss. She patiently explained that some of the monsters here were their friends, including the Wraths. That while they will forgive this killing, as it was likely done in innocence and ignorance, they want confidence that it won't happen again. The Admiral seemed confused, then barked out a laugh. He told the Grimalkine that they'd hunt down any problem monster that made itself known, no matter the species. They knew how to handle Wraths back in the old world. The Gajalaka ambassador had to be held back, and the Vulpin doing so nearly joined it. The Grimalkine tried to patch things over, but the Admiral cut her off. They could do things the Guild way, or stay out of the Hunter's way. The embassy left, tails between their legs and feeling defeated.
So yesterday, I had 2 eggs for breakfast, and I was starving. And today, I had 4 eggs, and I'm stuffed. So tomorrow, I was thinking...
3 eggs, I get it. We don't really need to talk.
I was gonna say 2 eggs and a sausage.
Oh my god, please stop talking.
Wait, did you hear that?
Hear what?
I don't know, like some mid-2000s kids show theme with a rock cover done somewhat painfully average directly to a live-action TV adaptation? I don't even know what a TV is, but it sounds like that. That's weirdly Pacific, but yeah, kind of. Oh, great. So this is how I'm gonna die. Well, I guess I shouldn't have stolen those 2 eggs from that Rathalos.
I'm sorry, you fucking what?
The Confederacy stormed Astera 3 days later. Their hunters were powerful, but so limited in numbers. The Confederacy hit them from above and below, Wraths in the sky, and ground troops flanked by Glavinus. The Confederacy's forces targeted the hunters and disarmed them as quickly as possible. They ignored and actively saved non-hunters from harm, much to the shock of the humans and Wyverians among the ranks. If anything, the hunters were the ones risking the lives of their palicos by protracting this fight. When the dust settled, casualties were few. The more aggressive hunters who cut down Galajaka and others were torn asunder. Any who surrendered were stripped of weapons and armor. The Admiral survived, albeit roughed up a little, and was told plainly, "Here, in Caracas, the name of this land, we can do things the Confederacy of Species way, or you can stay out of our way. In fact, you're going to stay out of the way." The Admiral and the remaining hunters were given a boat and supplies, enough for the trip back to the Old World. The rest of the First Fleet were given a choice: leave with them, or remain here as an independent town. They would be considered full members of the Confederacy, and be under their protection. No large monsters would ever disturb them on Astra, or if they were traveling in the forest, and any damages done to the city would be rebuilt. The majority of the First Fleet chose to stay, particularly the Palicos. Many even wanted to move to the Grimalkind villages, to see the opportunities that they might be expanded upon.
I'm here to see
the fairy godmother. I'm sorry she's not in.
Jerome, coffee and a Monte Cristo, now!
Oh. Yes, fairy godmother. Right away. Look, she's not seeing any client today, okay?
That's okay, buddy. We're from the Union.
The Union?
We represent the workers in all magical industries, both evil and benign.
Oh, all right.
Are you feeling at all degraded or oppressed?
A little. We don't even have dental.
They don't even have dental.
Understandably, the relations between the Confederacy and Astra were tense for many years. The Guild overseas made a few attempts to take back the port city. The first two were routed by Wraths and Glavenus. The third and onwards were routed by Astra instead. Over the years, trade and research opportunities prospered under this independence. Astra was far more fruitful now that it could do so without the hunter's watchful eye, or without threat of wild creatures. They discovered more in the next few years than 5 times as much under the Guild's restrictions. Eventually, other delegations came to the Old World, hearing of this prosperity. The Wyverians, Trovarians, and Sea Peoples all sent their own embassies to Astra. The port city grew, thriving in its isolation from the Guild. It took many years for the Guild to come around. But as discoveries flowed back to the Old World through trade, they couldn't pretend the Confederacy of Species were tribal or backwater. The passage of time heals all wounds. And while it took quite a bit, the two groups were able to come together. An assembly of intelligent species coming together for the greater good, listening to each other and being better for it, using each other's strengths to learn more about the world and their place in it. Hey, you know, that kind of reminds me of...
I can't see anything. Magnify section 285.
There it is, sir. It's like a hole in space.
Now, we're acquainted with the wormhole phenomenon, but this appears quite different. What do your sensors indicate?
Nothing, sir.
Nothing. Mr. Data, you must mean that it's empty of matter.
It is a void without matter or energy of any kind.
Yet this hole has a form. Data has height, width.
Perhaps.
I believe we have time to take a closer look, number one.
It's a living.
Oh man, this has been my largest video yet. To be honest, I kind of went overboard for this, but Monster Hunter had so much in-depth lore and description, I want to do it justice. If you haven't clicked off yet, thank you so much for watching. I had an intense blast making this. A special thanks to a Cantor Evolve 45, just some guy, Greenclaw, Greppo, and Paragon 2000 and Oceaniz for helping researching this video. They have been my sources for all things Monster Hunter related, and I couldn't have done this without them. Greppo in particular helped with finding some very niche sources on Ben 10 lore so I could find other species that lived on Vulpin. Like always, I have my amazing art team to thank as well. ShadedGenet, Barzap, Just Some Guy, Nuka-Cola, Bald Bird, Johnny the City Patty, Greenclaw, an Antithornian Bandwagon, Corvix, and a Cantor Evolved. Two more quick reminders. I have a Patreon. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do more of it, consider donating there. All funds go directly to channel production, art commissions, or food for me to eat. Unfortunately, I make my videos with no financial help from YouTube, so if you want to see more stuff from me, please consider donating. Also, I have a contest actively going on right now, the Great Hybrid Drag Race. Check out the video popping up in the corner if you want to see more about it. I'd love to have more people join. The due date is August 31st. There should still be time when this video comes up, I hope. I'm not sure 100% when this video is going to pop up, but it'll be close. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next galaxy.